Let's do it.
All right.
Get Audacity going. Otherwise, there's no
We are
reason.
a minute early on the Facebook.
On the Facebook.
We are a minute early on the YouTube.
Check my audio levels
Yeah.
here. Checky, check.
And the bonus footage of being a minute early is checking levels. Yeah.
All right. Look at these like perspectives we have here.
Oh, man. I feel like I am in 3 dimensions today.
You're always in 3 dimensions.
Well, today I feel it.
Okay. I'm glad.
All right. We can see each other in that one on the Facebooks. We can see each other in that one on the YouTubes. And is there anything else?
Well, we got Audacity going for iTunes potentially, so we can hear and edit ourselves.
What is the audacity
It's
of
the
this?
audacity of it all.
The audacity of it all.
I can actually edit us now.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah?
So I was saying to you before we started this.
Yeah.
And no one's really watching right now, so this will be more for when people watch.
No
this.
one's
But
ever
Jade-
watching till later. Jade's here now.
Jade's here, which is cool because I really just want to tell this to people that are regulars and to yourself.
So we were talking about breaking the internet. You've heard
So
that phrase,
I was-
right?
Yeah, so I was asking Chisholm if he had heard the phrase like, "Oh, he broke the internet," or
Right.
"This video broke the internet."
Right.
Well, with this topic, I feel like the internet has broke me.
Wait, you researched this topic?
I have opinions on this. So
Sure.
today we're talking about indoctrination. I'm going to
We
do the
certainly
intro
are.
in a second, but the pre-intro here, I decided to do a few Googlings and then some YouTubings. And I feel like the internet has broke me. So we're going to need Mike Chisholm today to help steer this ship.
I can steer. I can ship.
Because, and I'm going to talk about
use
this a
the
little bit
postal
more
service.
in depth. You know what? So just sidebar. Sometimes when I watch these podcasts over again, because when you talk, like I am listening, but I'm trying
Sure.
to also like organize my thoughts for the next thing we're saying.
Yeah.
And I miss some of your quips.
Yeah.
And
I say them
sometimes
quietly.
when I watch them, well, I do it too, and I'm sure we blow past them.
Sure.
But when I watch the stuff back, I'm like, I clap sometimes. Like some of the things you say are so perfect.
Right on. I'll take that.
But yeah, I feel like the internet broke me a little bit. I did write some notes to help with what points I'm trying to get across.
Okay.
But there's a lot of well, I mean, it doesn't matter what you're researching. There's a lot of contradicting
Sure.
information. But
Absolutely.
This topic, you've heard of like umbrella terms, right? It happens a lot in medicine. Like an example is I got diagnosed with spondylosis, which is an umbrella term for like arthritis and any narrowing. of the
Fibromyalgia
spine.
is an umbrella term, I believe.
No, arthritis is an umbrella term.
Oh, umbrella's okay.
Fibromyalgia is a type of arthritis. So arthritis is fibromyalgia is autoimmune.
Okay, so cancer would be an umbrella.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
an umbrella term. And
Okay.
I started noticing that just the term indoctrination, or blanket term is another one. Joe Rogan
Blanket
uses
term.
this a lot. It's like the term drugs is a blanket term because all drugs are different, right?
Sure.
Some are illegal, some are not. But yeah, I noticed that indoctrination can be used and manipulated to indoctrinate people into a belief itself. This is like the rabbit hole I've gone on.
Layers
today.
of indoctrination.
So yes, I've been trying to peel back the onion, so to speak.
So I've got a question about, peel back your onion, and you've broken yourself because of these layers that you've discovered. Like,
I literally had to put meditation music on with my Beats headphones, and I had to meditate for 15 minutes before, just to organize my thoughts.
was it an organized meditation? Like, did someone lead you through it?
No, it's just, I just put music on. And
Okay.
I just had to like not have any more information going in my head for a second.
Hashtag self-led meditation.
I was comparing it to Jen to like, it's like if you were trying to dump a bunch of stuff down a drain,
Okay.
and it's all like going down, but then there's too much to go down and it just slowly clogs,
Yeah.
and then it's just slowly finishing itself.
I'll bring it back, man. I got no problem bringing it back.
So anyways, I'm gonna go grab my phone because there's a clip I want to show during this thing, and then we're gonna do the intro and get this bad boy going. Jade, thank you for joining us, my friend. Jade sent me, so I'm gonna give Jade a little shout out. He sent me a private message with his. He did like the best reveal ever. He was downtown, it looks like, where there's a bunch of posters on like the big pillars, and there's like a poster, and then you can see that there's another poster underneath, and he like slowly reaches over and rips the poster off, and it's a Big West wrestling poster with my stupid face on it.
No.
And then he walks it over to the garbage and throws the other poster
Oh
away.
no.
It was really funny.
Can we use this for something?
I don't
Because
know.
I feel like we should be able to use this for something. You know what? We're gonna do the intro in a moment here, but Colin's going to get his telephone, and his telephone has some sort of information on it that we can use for this podcast. This podcast is going to be on indoctrination, which is very cool. Because I don't think that we talk about, this is one of those things that I don't think we talk about enough, but it's always there. It's always there in all sorts of elements in our life, potentially positive, potentially negative. Who knows? We're going to talk about this and see if it's what indoctrination is and what it means to us in our daily lives. But at the end of the day, we are the World of Grey podcast.
In a society divided by black and white arguments, we are here to explore
the world of gray.
I am Kelowna's Cougar Meat Kid, Colin Cutler.
I am magnanimous Mike Chisholm.
I like that. Magnanimous? Don't know what it
Mike
means.
Magnanimous.
Don't know what it means.
I am the
but
hair,
I like it.
Mike Chisholm. I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we will.
A couple things before we start.
Yeah.
Our third leg of this podcast.
Careful
My wiener dog.
Yes.
Hardy boy will not be joining us today. He has pinched a nerve in his back, and at one point had lost feeling in his left back leg. Luckily, that feeling has come back thanks to cortisone, steroids, and anti-inflammatories.
It's more than a feeling.
And this is like it is sounds funny because like my wiener dog has a pinched nerve or whatever, but it's actually really serious, and I'm heartbroken by this. My dogs are my children. So he's on for real bed rest. Our black lab Daisy is not here. She's going to be at my mother-in-law's house for 2 weeks, and so I'm starting to miss her a lot as well. I'll take her for a walk when we're done here.
It must be a quiet
Yes.
Cutler household.
It's quite it's very quiet. It's kind of like eerily quiet.
Yeah.
I actually late at night I keep hearing Daisy scratching at the back door even though she's not there.
Oh man,
because that's just when she's not around. That's what my brain waits for.
Isn't that right there a form of indoctrination right there? Like, isn't 100%. That just, yeah. Speaking of indoctrination, it's St. Patrick's Day.
It is St. Patrick's Day. So
what are you doing in honor of St. Patrick's Day?
We are indoctrinated to believe that we need to drink on St. Patrick's Day. So this is one form of indoctrination I will follow today. I'm not wearing green because I will protest a little bit, but I'm going to attempt to drink 3 of these beverages that will not be named because
during the podcast.
You
are drinking and podcasting.
Drink 3 of them.
Is there a law against drinking and podcasting?
I don't know. And I don't know.
If so, we might be breaking a law. You might be breaking a law.
Might be. And that's not good because it's my job, but that's all right.
Breaking the law.
Hope we're not breaking the law.
You know, I wish I could be drinking today, but I'm not drinking today because I am on a month.
Why are we fuzzy?
Why are we fuzzy?
Pete says we're fuzzy.
I don't know, man. I think Pete's fuzzy. I believe because on our screen we look good.
Yeah, we look good.
I think Pete's internet connection is fuzzy at best. I'm on a bit of a cleanse this month and resetting a bunch of biological things in my body, including habits and all sorts of stuff. What's that?
Like your liver?
My liver, not intentionally, but yes, because of this, it will be. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Yeah, I am good. And I appreciate that. So I will not be drinking today. I've taken out a lot of substances, including the sugars, the boozes, the marijuanas, nothing at all this month of March, and it's doing pretty good. It's going, but right now I'm looking at St. Patrick's Day, going, this would be nice, but that's okay. We sacrifice so we can get better.
Well, and that's the thing too, is not just St. Patrick's Day, but you're a businessman. You go to a lot of social events.
Yes.
It is its own indoctrination that you go and be social and have a few drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying it's pushed upon, but it's just subconsciously within us.
Yeah, it's everywhere in my life. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not against alcohol. What I am is pro getting my body into a peak state. There's fitness that's attached to it. There's business goals that are attached to it. There are new habits and reading and journaling and all sorts of stuff that I'm doing. This is much part of a much grander plan. It's all part of the plan, as the Joker says. But you know what? Talk about indoctrination. With St. Patrick's Day, it just led me to remember something and think about something. And I'm going to note it right now because you think about wearing the green on St. Patrick's Day. Do you remember like growing up? Remember you and I are both happily not single. And that's great. And we've got gals in our lives who are way better than we are. And we're very, very. Yeah, I know. Well,
they
I
don't
think they
watch
do.
this.
No. I think they know. I just think that
Of course they know.
that they just want to help us out. And
they pity us.
oh yeah, they pity
It's a
us.
pity plea.
I'll take it.
We'll
I'll
take
take it with my girls. Yeah, but
No shame.
you think about back when everything was single, and we were all single, and you think about St. Patrick's Day, and you'd see somebody maybe who a member of the opposite sex or the same sex, depending on your persuasion. But for me, it was the member of the opposite sex, and they would look at me and they'd say, "Oh, you're not wearing any green," and then now, or I might say to them, "Oh, you're not wearing any green,"
Right.
and then they would look at, and the response would be completely different depending on who said it. Like if I looked at her and I said, "Hey, you're not wearing any green," and she looked at me and she said, "I might be." Right? Then the
That's
male,
fine.
whatever, starts doing its thing and all this sort of stuff. Now, the men, however, have a very, very small window of the same thing working. If the gal says to me, "Oh, you're not wearing any green," and I look at her and I say, "I might be."
Then you get pepper sprayed.
Then I'm a creep, right?
Most
then
likely.
I'm absolutely. And so it's
course.
just funny how the dynamic between the two. Now, very small window. Every once in a while, you see a gal who you say that to, and she goes, "Oh," right? But then you know that she doesn't really care about that. She's just placating what I'm trying to say
She's
there.
just feeding your ego.
She's
really.
100% just feeding
because
the
she
ego.
is interested.
Yeah.
The thing with that though is, and this is something that we talked about PC culture a few episodes ago, and this is the positive spin on PC culture. I think men are now a little bit more aware that, yeah, that sounds like a double standard, but you got to look at the history of men being creeps.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's just,
we all have it in us.
Like, and this is something I didn't like. I knew, but I didn't realize the prevalency of it
Sure.
until these things like the Me Too movement comes around.
Absolutely.
You realize just how much women have to deal with this, and you hear a lot of interesting stories. Like there's an interesting story here. Now we're off topic, but that's okay. Where this girl was saying that next time you say hi to a stranger, like a female stranger on the street, and she snubs you, and you're like, "Oh, what a bitch." Think about the things those women have dealt with in the past. So they're going to be on high alert.
Sure.
And her story was that this happened to her once where a guy on the street said hi to her and she said hi back. And the guy ended up following her all the way. There's more to the story than that.
Yeah.
But he ends up following her all the way to her house. Like, so next time a girl snubs, you think, well, maybe she's been followed to her house once or twice and she doesn't want to necessarily talk to a stranger on the street.
You think?
But we're talking about indoctrination, Dan.
Yes.
There's a few different topics I want to talk about. Scientology is one.
We're going into the religion. I wasn't sure if you were going to do religion or not.
We don't necessarily have to go into religion because anything like Christianity and things that are old religions from before history, and there's no way to really prove or disprove them, I guess, is for lack of a better way of explaining it. Like, I'm not religious, so I'm not trying to push a non-religious bias.
Yep.
But Scientology is one that we can quantifiably say is complete bullshit, and there's evidence for it. So that's why I grabbed my phone. I do have this like 1-minute video that kind of explains what Scientologists believe, which, by the way, until it broke on the internet was supposed to be a secret. Right? Like, you weren't supposed, like, the actual belief of Scientology was not supposed to be known to even
public record or
known to even Scientologists until a certain point. If you listen to Leah Remini, who was one of the actresses on King of Queens, I don't know if you ever watched that show.
I know who Leah Remini is.
She was big into the church, and she was one of the first mainstream.
She was the gal who was way
stars.
too hot for Kevin James.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
And she was one of the mainstream stars, celebrities of Scientology to come out and explain that this is bullshit. But she does the Joe Rogan podcast, and she has her own show. She's talked about this a million times. Sure. But even she grew up in the church, and she wasn't allowed to even know the secrets of Scientology. So it starts with, and I wrote notes, but I'm never going to follow the notes in order.
Can I begin?
Yeah, please.
Just put a pin in that.
For sure. Go.
Webster, no, not Webster. Google defines indoctrination as, and I don't know what site I'm on. It might be Webster. Who knows? The process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically.
Right.
Okay. So that's what we're talking about here. So we're going to be talking about indoctrination and putting people in. Now here's my question that I would love to have, maybe not answered, but talked about by the end. Is indoctrination always a bad thing?
Yeah.
Is it always about control?
Yeah.
Is it always something that leads to negative things? Those are the questions. I said one question. Those are three questions that I would like to kind of maybe get to.
Just having an internal giggle because I just watched the viewers go from 3 to 4 to 3 in like a second.
I know. It's when I talk. I gotta get you talking more.
No, it's not that. You're a very educated man. No, but that's a interesting thing. And I personally don't think indoctrination is always a bad thing. It depends what we're talking about, right? And this is where I was joking that the internet broke me today, because as I started looking into these negative indoctrination fields, everything started to contradict each other. And it was this weird ebb and flow of bullshit and like kind of facts. And because the thing
is, you saw layers,
just these weird layers. And then I was kind of regretting picking this as a topic because it was like, I don't know how to,
I don't regret it at all.
I don't know how I'm supposed to like funnel into one coherent thought.
This is the tip of a spear. I think. I don't think that we're going to solve what indoctrination 100%. Is in one podcast. I think that that this is the tip of a spear.
Yeah.
And I think the awareness at all is something that, look at you, happy St. Patrick's Day. There's one.
I'm gonna blame
the goal
St.
is three.
Day on
the goal is 3.
I'm gonna blame the views on St. Patrick's Day. I feel like everybody's out getting drunk right now.
Already? All right. Well, okay. Fair point. Okay. So anyway, today's the tip of the spear when it comes to indoctrination. So we can go back to your take the pin out of the Scientology thing. At the end of the day, it's safe to say that most religions use indoctrination as a form of teaching. Would that be? Sure. And I mean, no judgment on that. It's trying to get people to believe in something without any criticalness or criticism at all. Right? So, was that fair to say?
Yeah. So Jade is talking about Mormonism. So I don't know a ton about this. Saying Mormonism is pretty fucked too. You can swear, just for the record. And
no offense to anybody, no judgment to anybody when it comes to this. Okay, so we're not going to try and judge anybody. People can go and their opinions, that sort of thing. But let's all love each other as much as we possibly
can. We're not going to try to indoctrinate anyone here.
Not at all.
So yes, I'm going to read your comment, Jade, because I love that you comment and I love your view of things. But I would like to preface this entire podcast with, we don't know shit.
No,
and
God, no.
I have my opinions. I'm always willing to discuss my opinions and change my opinions and edit my opinions. Just because you give me some sort of fact that contradicts my opinion, I will look at it. I will research it. Doesn't mean it in itself is going to change my opinion.
No.
But if it's strong enough, I have worked really hard over the last few years to be able to
you're fluid.
Yeah, to be able to change my opinion and allow
your opinion fluid,
that neuroplasticity to really evolve and help me grow as a person.
Yeah.
And I do have an example of this. I got into another social media political argument with somebody, and we can talk about this later. Because we're going to talk about how narratives will indoctrinate us into beliefs as well, and how it's hard to change those views. But it doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean that my opinion, regardless of the evidence I have, and then you bring me some and I don't agree, like that doesn't mean that I'm still not wrong.
No.
It just means that the information you presented to me, it wasn't strong enough to change my confirmation bias.
Right.
It doesn't mean I'm wrong, but it also doesn't mean that you're right.
Yeah.
And I think that we all need to start, I mean, unless you're like a scientist and we're talking about something that we can
that can be proven.
Yeah, that can be proven. But even in that aspect, things can be disproven.
For sure.
So I think the biggest...
This is a great disclaimer. This is the most disclaiming you've ever done.
Well, and I think this should be a disclaimer for all of our podcasts, because I believe strongly that if you... The more you learn, the more you learn that you don't know things, right? And there's a term for it, and we may have talked about this on the last podcast, but there's a psychological phenomenon that and a lot of people are saying Trump suffers from this, is where when you're not an expert on a topic, you will talk like you are an expert on the topic, and you can't even differentiate the fact that you don't know certain things about this topic.
Right.
You just don't understand. But the more you learn about something, the more you start to question it, because you start realizing, oh, maybe I don't know as much as I think I do.
Right.
This happens to me with fitness all the time. I'm a certified fitness professional. I've been doing this for 8 years, and every fucking year I contradict myself because new research comes out.
Sure.
And I have to I have literally a timer in the back of my head that when somebody asks me a question, hey, what about this? And as I'm explaining it, my brain goes, when's the last time you looked that up?
Okay.
And
that's good.
And I'll still say,
because a lot of people, that little voice doesn't show up at all.
So I'll still give out the information that I last researched or learned in school as I know it, and blah, blah, blah. But then, and like, oh, this is what I know, and this is blah, blah, blah. And then I'll go look it up. And this is, I may have talked about this on the last one. This happened with lactic acid. When I went to school, lactic acid was a byproduct of aerobic activity. And now they're proving it's not necessarily a byproduct. It's actually something that can be reintroduced into the system as lactate, and it's actually a fuel source. And most of our muscle fatigue comes from like creatine depleting and other little things too. But I had a conversation with someone where I was explaining, this is like 4 years ago, so I'm not still giving out the shitty information, just for the record. You're
not indoctrinating anybody with this.
But I remember talking to somebody about just the old school explanation of lactic acid, and then I looked it up and then learned this new research, and then talked to Serena, who is the manager at the time. She's like, because she has her degree, and so she went to school later after I went to school. And she was like, oh yeah, they just proved that a while ago. I'm like,
oh man.
So here's the other thing too, is this is why the internet was breaking me, is even when professionals tell you something, it doesn't mean that they're always right or will be proven wrong in the future. So this is why indoctrination can be such a dangerous thing, is it starts to kill our critical thinking. Because as you were saying, as a definition of indoctrination, is it's trying to make a group of people believe the same thing, and people will fight against anyone that comes and tries to disprove that belief. That's where the tribalism comes in. That's where our confirmation bias comes in. And Scientology is one of the biggest proponents of this, one of the biggest pushers of a false narrative that makes people believe complete nonsense. So if you've never...
We think it's false.
Sure. I could be wrong. I'm 90% sure I'm not. So
90?
I'm sorry.
I'm more sure about it.
Okay.
I'm more sure than 90. But
okay,
we could
I'm
be
100% sure that Scientology is bullshit.
I'm about 0.8% that thinking that there's a chance Scientology is real, but that's just me.
I was just trying to be diplomatic. But okay. So Scientology was created in 1950 by a man named L. Ron Hubbard, who was a science fiction writer. So red flag right there. I'm going to look up this video in a second. It's a 1-minute video that kind of explains what Scientologists believe. Scientology starts with a book called Dianetics.
Yes.
The Science of the Mind. This book basically, and I'm paraphrasing, and look it up yourself. Like I said, disclaimer, everyone should look up their own stuff. Dianetics basically is trying to get you to get above your primal instincts and create a higher self and good and purpose. So on the face of it, if you get into Scientology and read Dianetics and follow the philosophy of Dianetics, it actually could help you become a better person.
Yes.
So this is our world of
I've
gray.
actually met people who have gone just to the Dianetics side. They haven't gone past it. They haven't gone into the planets and all the other stuff that comes with it. But Dianetics has actually improved their life because they've improved the way that they think and focus on things.
Right. So yes.
But they also, just to note, they didn't push it on me. They didn't tell me that it's something that I should be indoctrinated into at all. They just said, hey, yeah, this is something that I have done and I've found some positive response from.
Right.
And to me, that's where, see, their critical thinking really at the end of the day wasn't really affected that I could see personally. But I've met people who indoctrination will take their critical thinking and they will be way focused and almost to the point of judgment if you don't agree with what they agree with. And that to me is the marking of someone who's indoctrinated.
Yeah. The other thing with Scientologists is they breed an environment where they encourage members of Scientology to actually rat on other members of the church. So if you are saying if you're questioning the church at all, if you hear somebody questioning the church, you're actually encouraged to fill out what's called a knowledge report and submit it to the church.
I see.
So this is how the church regulates itself. So it's a machine. So this is what happens with indoctrination. It creates a machine.
Yeah.
Right. And so then even when the founders or the starters of that started this machine die, like L. Ron Hubbard, other people will take it over because now there's some benefits. Now
Sure.
there's some rewards. Now there's cash money involved. And this is like over a $3 billion industry church. Okay. So just to put some perspective on it, in 1994, there was a report that said 30,000 members were nationwide in the US.
Okay.
In 2004, they reported that there's about 8 to 15 million members of the church worldwide
Of Scientology.
based off a man who was a science fiction
writer.
writer. So just to give you some kind of point of context, the boy is watching, just so you know.
Hey, the boy. Nice to see you, boy.
So, so hold on. Before we get to this, let's just go to some of the comments here. So Jade's talking about how he has had some debates with people over religion. He's done some research. And never has had his opinion swayed.
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not talking about whether any religion or
Mama's
anything like
watching.
that is true or not. Oh, good for her. Yeah,
Mama
right on.
Mrs. Cutler.
Right on, Mrs. Cutler.
Ms.
You know,
Cutler.
at the end of the day, what we're talking about is the process of things, and religion is one of them. But there are other ones, and we're going to get off religion at a certain point here, where we're going to talk about other things.
I'm not trying to talk about religion as an umbrella term. I don't know much about Christianity. I don't know much about Islam. I don't know much about the Jewish religion. These things precede modern history.
No, what we're talking about is indoctrination.
We're talking about indoctrination, and we're focusing on Scientology because this was created by a science fiction writer. I don't know the history of other religions, but I know for a damn fact that if you follow religion that was made up by somebody in the 1950s who was a science fiction writer, you should have some damn questions.
Yeah, and that's all we're trying to say. We're not trying to say it's right or wrong. What we're trying to say is you should have some questions. And indoctrination is the type of teaching where it puts it into your head where you shouldn't have questions.
Right.
Like there's a verse in the Bible, for example, it says question everything.
Right.
Okay. Like to me, that's wisdom. To me, it's wisdom not to just accept what, like you say, like a science fiction writer might say, and not have any critical thinking towards it whatsoever. That to me is where the indoctrination begins.
So I'm just going to play the audio here. This is a 1:28 clip.
All right.
The story of Scientology is based off of a leader called Xenu, Xenu. And this is the story of Xenu. Let me know if you can't hear this.
Okay.
75 million years ago, this planet was called Tigiyat. There were 90 planets in this sector called the Galactic Confederation.
This is part of the text of a Hubbard lecture.
They had elected a fellow by the name of Xenu to the supreme ruler, and they were about to unelect him. And he took the last moments he had in office to really goof the floof. Xenu decided to take radical measures to overcome the population problem. Beings were captured on other planets and flown to locations near 10 volcanoes or more on Earth. H-bombs were dropped on the volcanoes, destroying the bodies of the beings who, as thetans, attached themselves to one another as clusters. A revolt followed of the loyal officers against Xenu. Xenu was locked up in an electronic mountain fortress and remains there still. Since that time, beings born on this planet have had clusters of thetans attached to their bodies. OT3 can run out these clusters and cause them to leave us and reincarnate as individuals.
After hours of expensive auditing, you are rid of the body thetans attached to you. You may then acquire psychic powers, move objects at a distance, and have out-of-body experiences. If you find you can't, then you must take the course again for another £5,000.
Well, I mean, here's the first thing. If this is playing down at the Grand 10 movie theater, take my money. I'm in. It sounds like a movie that is worth. Whoa, hey, look at that. You know, yeah. So here's the thing, and I want to be as sensitive as possible to people out there who believe in certain religions and things like that. How do you get to the point where you have a belief that is so strong in what you just listened to there, that is so strong that it cannot be questioned by people who just have a good heart. They're not trying to smash any stones. They're not trying to smash any walls and not trying to smash any parts of their psyche. But how can somebody believe in that? So that what you just played there so deeply that their family, their friends, nobody around them would ever be able to get them to question if it could not be real. If there's a chance that this Xenu or whatever doesn't live in this modern fortress. I mean, my goodness, if that Xenu lives in this modern fortress, where is it? Let's go see it. Like, let's go, like, where's the transparency here? And that's the thing that always, when there's a lack of transparency, that is the thing that many times makes me question.
So I have a couple responses to that.
Okay.
One, I think I know that a good percentage of the believers of Scientology are grown up into it. They're bred into it. They're brought into it as children. Leah Remini's mom was into the church, and she was brought into it as a young woman and put millions of dollars into the church, and then was given the secrets of the church, and then was like, what the fuck?
Okay.
Because
so she questioned.
Well, you're not told this story right away.
No,
right?
No,
this story, you have to pay. You have to go through the Dianetics. You have to go through the auditing. You have to go through this whole rigmarole. And then you're given this case with this handcuffed to you with armed guards. And you go to the main church, and then you sit in a room, and then you read the story of Xenu.
Wow.
And that's where she was, star of King of Queens and a big celebrity.
Too hot for Kevin James. Yeah.
Too hot for Kevin James. So that's when she starts to question it. I think the other people that are susceptible to this kind of indoctrination are lonely, or lack a tribe, or don't have a lot going for them. So this is something, and they can be part of the minority, right? They can be part of something. They know something that nobody else knows. We talked about this with conspiracies. Is it everybody likes to be part of something that seems like it's a greater power, or it's and this is with every religion, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
We all want to be part of something positive. We all want to know we're taken care of. And it's something I wrote in my notes on my non-Scientology page. I think a lot of this comes down to our deep-rooted survival instincts.
Yes.
I think it's the same thing we talked about last podcast with, I'm late for work, so then I'm going to get fired, and then I'm going to starve.
Yeah.
Like, it's really easy for our brain to go and just dial back to, oh shit, I need this to survive. And if I can watch a couple videos or I can have somebody talk to me, they sit me down, they have a couple of drinks, and they explain to me how this is going to change my life and how if I don't do this, I'm on the wrong side. And it's picking sides, and it's tribalism, and it's survival. All of us, it's all we're trying to do all the time is just fucking survive. And we're all trying to figure out ways to navigate this world. And we're not in a world of, I just have to sleep and then get up and find some food and make some fire for warmth. We're in this world of, we need to navigate debt and social norms and internets and social media and poverty and wage inequality and politics and size,
self-esteem,
and tribalism. Like, we think that we have it so easy, which we do. Like, for standard of living and how safe the world is from we're going to die aspect,
from the first world problem perspective.
From the first world problem perspective, we are way better off nowadays than we have been ever in history.
100%.
That's true. But we have just compounded and added more and more stressors. This is in that happiness trap book, which is, we don't understand why we're having all these mental health issues. And this is why, is because we have all these different stressors. So let's get to some of the comments here. So Pete had a really long one.
Pete was just defining and talking about the history of indoctrination, and some of its, like doctrine comes from indoctrination. Doctrine is not a bad thing. Doctrine is a collection of the ideas and whatnot. It's put into it's organized. Okay, and that's fine. I think it's what we're talking about is the indoctrination is taking whatever doctrine it might be. And we're on religion. We're probably going to get off religion here too, because we want to talk about how people can be indoctrinated into other things. But at the end of the day, you take that doctrine and then you try and put it on people and get them to the point where they can no longer critically think about whatever it is. And I'm just trying to think of other things that we might be indoctrinated into. And then you're reading Jade's comment right now. Jade, thank you so much for everybody who's out there. Thank you so much for supporting, and throw out comments and let's talk about this real time.
And we're going to talk about everyone's opinion, whether we agree with it or not.
Yeah.
And to be honest, a lot of the stuff Jade says I agree with.
Sure.
Convince me of penguin.
Convince me a penguin walked from Antarctica to the Middle East to walk on a boat.
Oh, are you talking about?
I don't know, man. I don't think I can convince you of that.
talking about
I have a
Noah's
hard
Ark.
time. I have a hard time being able to convince you of
I
that.
think he's talking about Noah's Ark. One of my favorite, Ricky Gervais. You know who I'm talking about.
I know
That
Ricky.
guy,
Yep.
He has that. He had a podcast. Is it a podcast or a talk show? I've only seen the cartoon versions.
You're talking about An Idiot Abroad?
Yeah, Idiot
Yeah,
Abroad,
yeah.
and they're talking about Noah's Ark. 'Cause he's a well-known atheist.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais, and he's got what's his name? The partner.
I forget the guy's name.
So this guy, he's very genuine in his simpleness. He's a bit of a simpleton, but he's very genuine.
Yeah.
And they're talking about Noah's Ark and how it could never happen because of the food chain, and all the animals will eat each other.
Yeah.
And the guy turns and he goes, "Well, everyone comes together in a crisis,"
Oh man,
which is so good.
that's a really funny line. And again, like we're not talking about faith here. If you have a faith in something, nobody wants to change that. Nobody wants to change whatever that faith
I'm going to
is.
interject here. I'm
Okay.
not saying I want to change it, but I will say that you should question it. Just because
Always.
you grew up in a religion, and I'm not shitting on any religions. If that's what gets you through the day and that's what helps you, like, I may not believe it, but I could be wrong. I could be burning in a fiery hell when I pass on. Who knows? But that's my opinion. You can have your opinions, but it doesn't mean if you have even the slightest inclination in the back of your mind that you should question what you're being told, follow that feeling and look it up and research it and form your own opinion. Just because you have to have faith and you're scared, because this is the other thing with indoctrination. A lot of it is fear-based.
Okay, I want to hold on a second though. I think that religion and faith are two different things.
Okay, fair enough.
That's what I want to say. If you have a deep faith, nobody wants to change that deep.
But can faith
and that
be
faith is
pushed
beautiful.
on you?
Can be faith people. I think that the indoctrination comes from the group that is telling you, but that you need to do this or you need to believe that. But do you believe it in your heart? Has it been believed in your heart? Like, to become faith.
But can you get to a point where it's been said to you enough that you believe it in your heart because it's being said to you over and over and over?
And this goes back to Pete's point of saying, is indoctrination brainwashing? And the answer is not necessarily.
Right.
I think that maybe you're moving into, at that point with what you're talking about, I think you're moving into brainwashing. And I don't think that's necessarily the case with some people.
Okay.
But that's that. And I don't think the two are the same. I don't think indoctrination is the same as brainwashing.
And I agree. You're right. Religion has the faith aspect to it. So that is a whole nother thing.
So let's move over to math.
We're on the same
Science, math. Okay.
Right.
So indoctrination, there's a lot of indoctrination in the scientific community. I've listened to many scientists on many different platforms and podcasts and things like that, where they don't agree with each other, where they will take what they believe is the facts, especially when you look into history.
Yeah.
You look at how old the pyramids are,
Right.
and what different leaders within the scientific community believe to be that age. You've got the norm, which is what is taught in the textbooks and things like that. And then you got people who are outside of that and believe and come with very compelling evidence, scientific evidence, that might not necessarily be the case of what they're teaching in the textbooks. And then you've got the people who believe in the textbooks who have been so indoctrinated
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
And they're not even willing to look at something different, because they're not willing to look, and because the truth might be different, and they don't even want to accept that the truth is different than what they've been taught. And
So-
there's where indoctrination to me goes into things that are other than hot topic points like religion and things.
We've moved on, but Jade, I see your comment, and I actually am right there with you. I've had similar conversations, but no, I agree with you. The one thing I will say about the scientific community, and this is something when I was researching why people believe in conspiracies, that came up, and it may have been the Joe Rogan podcast, I don't remember. There was a scientist on, he said the problem is science is always, any scientific hypothesis and analysis is always going to have anomalies.
Okay.
Right? So yeah, there's more evidence towards one thing, but there's always going to be anomalies that you can cherry pick out and argue. Right. So then if I've been indoctrinated to believe one thing, I can pick out those anomalies.
Right.
And I can just focus on those anomalies.
Okay.
Right. It doesn't mean that there's not 80% more evidence of the contrary. Right.
Right.
So we can always pick and choose. Another indoctrination I'd like to talk about is mainstream media.
Okay.
Mostly because in our current political climate, and by our current, I'm talking mostly about the United States, because that's the one that's coming up.
We are
Actually,
not America.
We're not America.
We are
We're
Canadian.
Canada.
We're Canada.
But a lot of the content that we're being fed in Canada is American news and politics.
Sure.
So I just want to talk about different groups of people getting fed certain information on platforms that aren't necessarily directed towards that platform. And let me be a little more clear and give you an example. I've seen a few clips of The View's political segments.
The View on ABC.
The View on ABC.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, The View should not be doing political segments, but that's their show and that's their content and that's what we're going to do. And I'm here to point out a few flaws in this.
Why do you think that The View shouldn't have political discussion?
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to contradict
No. Don't be.
No. I get what you're saying, and you're right. Maybe they should be allowed. I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to have political segments.
No.
I'm just saying.
No. Why shouldn't they be? Why shouldn't they focus?
They shouldn't focus on it because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. That's why they shouldn't. Okay. And one big example, and I have a bunch, and you can look at clips of Bernie Sanders being on there. The biggest one that really aggravated me was Tulsi Gabbard.
Okay.
Tulsi Gabbard is someone who's running for president. She's a congresswoman in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
She is a veteran of the military-industrial complex, so she has history there. And the segment she did on The View proved that everyone on that panel does not know enough about political history to talk about or argue or push back on or hold feet to the fire of politicians. And they clearly have their own agendas, all of them. And I'm not picking,
are they agendas or are they opinions?
In my opinion, they're agendas because they're reading off a fucking script. You can see them reading off the script. Joy Behar, not so bad. Meghan McCain is fucking awful. She's reading talking points off a fucking script.
Okay.
She's a bad person. Okay. I'm gonna let you talk about Meghan McCain, because when we talked about this before, oh, really? You don't think she has good opinions? So I want you to explain to me why you think she does. You said I'm going to explain to you why she's a terrible fucking person.
Okay. So I've got first off, I don't judge anybody. Here we go. St. Patrick's Day. So okay, one thing that I said when you said that the other day, you said Meghan McCain, you had a very strong opinion about her, and I said, "Oh, really? You don't like her?" I think that she's very well spoken and seems to come across right. And your response to me was, "Yeah, when she's sticking to her talking points."
Yes.
And I thought, okay, I'll take that. That's an interesting way to go. I want to go back to the View though for a second here. Does the View not reflect society in general? Is society in general not, hey, let's get together and we'll all get into a coffee shop and we'll all talk about we're all going to talk about how we feel about what's going on, and what's going on is what we know based on headlines, based on what we saw on the news the other day while we were doing laundry at the same time and we only heard half of it, or what's going on is that not a reflection as to what the audience is?
Correct.
Okay.
Here's my thing.
Sure.
The audience shouldn't be allowed to push a political agenda on a guest either.
Right.
You should sit and listen. Thank you very much for coming on the broadcast and explain to me shit that I don't fucking know.
Okay.
Okay? You shouldn't be pushing political talking points from a corporate agenda that wants you to shut the fuck up and not talk about how we shouldn't be intervening in fucking wars. Because we shouldn't. We shouldn't be trying to we shouldn't pick and choose which dictators we want to overthrow.
Okay.
If you think dictators...
So you're talking about a very specific issue here.
If you think dictators shouldn't exist, overthrow all of them. What about Saudi Arabia?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we talking about Saudi Arabia?
Mm-hmm.
Siege warfare in Yemen. We're funding, not we. I say we, but Canada's not. But Canada goes along with a lot of things. Canada wants regime change in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
And again, disclaimer, I'm not saying these aren't bad people, but we're picking and choosing which bad people we want regime change for because they have fucking oil or whatever.
Okay, so you've kind of moved this over to political agendas.
Okay, let me give you my example.
Okay.
So, Tulsi Gabbard, I feel like I'm always butchering her last name.
Okay.
Tulsi Gabbard was on The View.
Okay.
And she was trying to explain to everybody on The View that every time the United States military goes in and implements coups and causes regime change, that the countries are always worse off than before they came in and did regime change. And she's explaining Libya, Libya now has open slave trades, and Joy Behar goes, "Oh, they didn't have that before." So, and they've pushed back a bunch of times within this interview. So you're pushing back on someone that is saying that regime change doesn't work, and you're trying to say that we should go in and have regime change if there's dictators, but you don't even know the fucking history. So why are you pushing back? And then Meghan McCain,
is that pushback or is that just clarification?
That Joy Behar, not so bad. She was more just clarifying, but there was a little bit of that.
I don't think asking questions is ever a bad thing.
I agree.
Okay, so I just want to throw that out there.
There's
too.
if
somebody is stating something hardcore, like you've been stating things hardcore, right? But you are also open to me asking you questions about what you've been stating.
Right.
And you are willing to respond to it. That isn't something that's read in a book saying, oh, I can only respond this way because this is my hardcore indoctrination type belief. So discourse is not a bad thing.
I agree.
Ever.
I agree.
That being said, if the intention of asking the question is meant to derail or discredit or whatever, you got to wonder. Like, so it always comes back to, why did Joy ask that question? Did she ask it just for clarification, or did she ask it for, to derail?
If you listen to her, it sounds very genuine, like that she really didn't know. And this is where I go back. Like, if you're not gonna look up a little bit of the history of what your guest is gonna come on and talk about, then why even bring all this stuff up? But
so we're assuming that they knew that she was going to talk about that.
And that's the thing too. And you're correct. And we don't maybe they didn't know, and maybe they just genuinely had this opinion that America goes in and tries to spread democracy, which is highly debatable.
And is that what they're doing, or are they just trying to set up their own imperialistic assets?
Correct. Yeah. And which is the argument, right? And that's not really the point of.
See, to me, that
her coming on.
To me, if you're a country, a group of people, a society, a company, and you're going to try and improve something, if change needs to happen, that change would happen and be followed with an unbelievable amount of support and love and building and things that aren't the change. They are the things that are needed.
Well, and I mean, just look at Venezuela, right? Whether you agree with Maduro's politics or not, which I wouldn't, I would agree that he is probably not a great person and he is a bit of a dictator, but he was democratically elected, and you can argue whether or not that election was a true election, because he did lock up some people that he says are corrupt, and who knows if that's true or not.
Sure.
But is the solution to just name a new president that 80% of Venezuelans had never heard of before? So you're just saying, oh, he's president now. Why wouldn't you get the UN involved, which the Venezuelan opposition tried to have the UN not come in and do a report, which the UN did come in and do a report and said that there's no real threat to America and there's no real worldly threat with Venezuela. They're just mismanaged, and they should be able to have their own elections and have free elections. Why wouldn't you go in and work with the UN to monitor the elections?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you go, okay, well, maybe let's have a re-election and let's monitor and let's make sure it's fair. That's democracy.
Sure.
So you're trying to say, oh, we're trying to spread democracy, but we're going to go in and just throw a new guy in there. And 9 times out of 10, they just throw one dictator in for another.
Yeah.
And that's why we have open slave trade in Libya. So Tulsi Gabbard is trying to explain all this, and Meghan McCain is cutting her off. And first of all, who is Meghan McCain? She's the daughter of an old senator. I don't know if she has a political background. Maybe she does. She's worth $4 million, and she spews a bunch of nonsensical talking points that you hear all the time that make no sense.
Okay.
And I mean, Tulsi Gabbard is so much poise. I can't even keep it together on a podcast with one fucking person watching. Yeah. And Tulsi Gabbard is running for president and has millions of people watching, and And so Meghan McCain, oh, what, are we supposed to just not do anything when Hassan gasses his own Syrian people? Which, by the way, look into that. Why the fuck would you gas your own people? Like, what, how does that make any sense? He has a bunch of proxy.
So you're questioning that it even happened?
I'm questioning that I mean, I don't know. Maybe he did.
Okay.
But this is somebody who has is involved in proxy wars against other countries. So why would he gas his own people in the midst of all of that?
Okay.
Like, it just, to me, that, but whatever, like, that aside, Meghan McCain is calling Tulsi Gabbard this Assad apologist and blah, and all Tulsi Gabbard is trying to say is every time the U.S. military goes into a country, the country is worse off than before.
Okay. And you
Every
feel
time.
that Meghan was trying to get her off of the premise
She just
of
keeps
that.
pushing back because she's trying to indoctrinate an entire group of the population to believe one narrative. Another time when Meghan McCain has done this is there was, I forget her name, but there's a congresswoman who is trying to say that there's a bill that's trying to be passed in the United States right now, where if you criticize the Israeli government for anything that they're doing, that is considered anti-Semitic hate speech.
Okay.
Okay. So if you don't agree with the Israeli army sniping Palestinians on the Gaza Strip when they are peacefully protesting, you are now accused of hate speech and could be a criminal.
So who is putting that bill forward?
Well, it's the Senate, I believe. I could be wrong, but it's trying to be passed within.
Okay, so
government.
there are people out there who believe that what you're saying.
It's trying to be passed as a law, and it might be. I'm assuming Senate because Republicans control the Senate. I could be 100% wrong. Again, like, I'm not a political.
See, this is my point, though. Aren't we doing exactly right now what they do in The View?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
So this is why I always put the disclaimer on, right? But I don't have an agenda.
No.
Okay.
That's
like,
the difference.
This is the difference. This is just what I have looked at, and I
Yes.
encourage everyone to look up your own shit. But my point is, Meghan McCain should not be the voice of American people. Who the fuck are you? You have $4 million because your parents are rich and you're just being given all these opportunities. Like,
Is she? We don't know. You don't know.
No, she has. She's worth $4. What the fuck have you done? Right?
Okay.
So and I'm a little bit more substance here.
Yeah, but what has she done? Like, you don't know what she's done. She might have.
True.
She might have gone out and been a
Maybe she does
lawyer,
have
and she may be a partner in a law firm. Maybe she's like
maybe she has.
Yeah.
Okay. So she was trying to say that this congresswoman who was questioning the Israeli government's policy, she was questioning Israelis' foreign policies, and she starts getting all upset and saying that she is basically, so here's the other thing that gets confusing, is Meghan McCain is on The View saying that she's basically a Zionist, which I'm pretty sure, Google the definition of Zionist. A Zionist just means that you believe that the Israeli people should have their own motherland, right?
Mhm.
That's all you believe. So to say that you're basically a Zionist makes no sense. Either you're a Zionist or you're not a Zionist, correct? Either you believe it or you don't. But she's saying that
you can't be on the fence.
I don't know. Well, I guess you could be on the fence, but she's trying to like defend the Jewish people, right? Which is not a bad thing at all. I'm not saying not necessarily. It's not a bad thing at all. But she's trying to justify this because her, so the girl she's arguing with on The View, her uncle, her family, her blood relatives were Jewish, right? And so she didn't necessarily agree with this law. And Meghan McCain is saying that she's basically a Zionist because her dad's friend was Jewish. And then she starts crying over it. She starts crying over this because the Jewish people and blah, blah, blah. So then, okay, that's kind of weird, but I get it. You care about your dad's friend and you care about the Jewish people. So maybe your heart's in the right place. So the internet kind of blows up over this. And in, I believe it was the New York Times, I could be wrong, but there was a cartoon that went around of Meghan McCain wearing like a Jewish Star of David and crying over this whole segment, right? So then Meghan McCain takes this cartoon and tweets that this is the most anti-Semitic thing she's ever seen in her life, and is trying to, I guess, call the I can't find the word, but she's trying to say that the person that drew this is anti-Semitic. The guy that made this cartoon is a Jewish guy who advocates for, like, is a Zionist and advocates for Jewish rights all the time.
So she had what we're talking about here, some opinionated ignorance
Right.
based on.
She's
Okay.
just trying to she's just doing anything she can to get a political agenda across. And she ended up calling in sick to The View right after this happened.
Well, and you know what? I don't want to make this so much about Meghan McCain, but the broader issue is that we have a society that is built on, and I mean, by the way, Meghan McCain, very educated. She's had some radio shows and things like that. So
what's her background?
There are some education in art history.
So you should be talking about politics.
Who knows? But that being said, we live in a society where that there are people who are put in front of us spewing out major opinions like they're major facts. Oh, here we go. Number
Last
3,
one.
3 of 3. Happy St. Patrick's Day. This is a very, very interesting podcast that we've had today. This is the most, this is one of the most interesting ones that we've ever had. But at the end of the day, here's the thing that I go back to. So we talked about, some religious indoctrination. We talked about scientific indoctrination. Now we're talking about corporate indoctrination, where you've got corporations who have agendas for whatever reasons those might be, right? And again, we're talking allegedly here. We're not talking like we're experts, but what we're seeing is that the world around us, this is happening. And you've got these different corporations who will do what it takes to take whatever their agenda is and jam it down our throats like it's a fact, including hiring people of various backgrounds to tell us something is gospel.
Correct.
When it isn't necessarily gospel. At the end of the day, it's their opinion, and sometimes it's the opinion of the corporation. Here's an example that I have of that. The what's the name of the media group that owns Ring of Honor Wrestling?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, so there's this media group in the United States, and it's not Claremont, it's something.
Okay.
But anyway, they're a huge media group, and I'll look up the name before the end of the podcast. It might even ring a bell, but they own a ton of news stations across the U.S. and like a ton of them. And many times, what will happen, and you'll see Conan O'Brien and some other late night hosts poke fun at this. They will Sinclair. That's what their name is. Sinclair.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And what they'll do is they will write an op-ed of some sort, a piece of opinion, and they will give it to all of their newscasters. And their newscasters are now tasked with the job of reading out word for word, verbatim, the entire op-ed. Usually these op-eds are very opinion based, but they're coming across from a news organization and somebody who has been hired by that news organization to report the facts. And when you think about that, that to me is a really scary form of indoctrination, because what they're doing is they're taking these opinions that are theirs for whatever reason, whether it's political, whether it's economical, whether it's whatever that might be. And they're taking these opinions, giving it to newscasters to report out as gospel. Now, if that's not indoctrination, I don't know what is. And
you are fake news. You are fake news. You are fake news.
What are we doing here? What are you looking at?
So
they can't.
So I'm
see
trying
this.
to find. I know it's okay. I'm trying to find a compilation of exactly what you're talking about.
Look at Conan O'Brien. Let's lighten things up a little bit and go.
I'll try to find Conan O'Brien. That's what I was trying.
Look at Conan O'Brien and then news. Conan O'Brien news similarities or something like that. It is an unbelievable thing when you see it, when you hear and see all of these different broadcasters from different.
Happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Well, a child's happiness is priceless, right? Especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on their birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on.
I think we get the point.
Hundreds of them. Okay. So now a child's happiness is priceless on a birthday. I heard that somewhere. You think about that message there. Okay. It's benign and it's funny on a late night talk show to throw that in there, but that is not what they're just doing. They're talking about major issues that are happening.
Yep.
And they're really trying to get out their agenda to us.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we as people are able to question what is being heard. Even that. Now, am I going to question that a child's happiness is priceless, especially on their birthday? I don't know. But what I do know is that if they're talking about going to war
Yeah.
If they're talking about a certain political party or a certain terrorism, something, a major issue. Oh my goodness. What if they were all talking about something that's going on at the Mexican border that isn't going on at the Mexican border? What if they're talking about that? You're going to have tens of thousands, you're going to have millions of people who are believing what is being said based on a corporation's indoctrination. And the media is very, in my opinion, I wish we were at a place where the media, it could be a place where integrity is king and fact checking and things. But we live in a nation now where fact checking and some of these things have gone by the wayside. And it's really, really hard when you see all these opinions coming out there. And all of us are listening equally to what Kim Kardashian is saying, equally to what Dan Rather was saying. You know, Dan Rather's an old example, but Jake Tapper, say, for example, you know, we're looking at these people in the same weighting. Should we be doing that? I don't know.
And this is something I bring up with a lot of different subjects, is it's so hard for the average person to put the time and effort into researching things because we all have to work so much. We all have to survive. Who the fuck has the time to do what you and me do and go through every little topic and look at contradicting things? Like, I constantly look at videos and news articles from people that I fucking hate and I don't agree with because I just need to see every side. And you have to look at every side and in between and independent news and mainstream news, and you have to try to form an opinion from all the similarities and all the things that start to interconnect. You need to create this cybernetic web of information and pick and choose all the things that make sense to you and have a little bit of faith. And it's not that easy nowadays to build a narrative in your own head unless you just watch one thing.
Well, and that's the thing. Like let's think about Germany in the 30s and 40s. Okay. And we go back there. And I think most of us, if not all of us, would agree that we would never want to be part of something where we're so indoctrinated into a line of thinking that it would cause harm to others. Hopefully we all are on page on that. I assume that.
But how many of that population believed the words of Hitler at the time?
Exactly.
And they were indoctrinated. And that's exactly it. And that's a good point. We all need to start questioning it a little bit. And that's, we're not here to tell you what's right or wrong.
No,
we're here to tell you that don't believe every fucking thing. And you know what?
Question stuff.
My dad worked really hard. He worked for the city. He graduated I don't even know if he graduated high school.
Okay.
But he gave me some of the best advice of life. And this is the other thing. And we're running out of time, or we're not going to have time to get into education. Maybe we'll have to make this a 2-part podcast. I don't know. And maybe not next week because clearly not that many people are into it. And that's fine with me.
I don't know about that.
But that's fine with me, because this is something that needs to be talked about. And I would like to do a part 2 on this. And I would like to talk about education, because when I started looking at indoctrination, education was the number one thing that came up, and it all contradicted itself. People saying, oh, the left are trying to indoctrinate. Oh, the corporations are trying to indoctrinate.
Okay, well, hold on. We can make a real quick kind of real life example. You think about when we were growing up, and maybe even today, like I don't have kids in the school system today, but when I was growing up, sex education was a real hot topic for parents. There was a massive divide on what should be taught about sex education to kids. And so you had a group of people who were saying, no, it's got to be the strict biology as we know it. And then you had people who were talking about, no, we need to talk about things like preference and same sex and some of these different things. And there was a real divide.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you've got genuine people who have genuine opinions that are debating what should be taught in schools to our kids as they come forward. So it doesn't have to be something that is, sinister and agenda based and all these things. What we have here though are and it's so important. Education is so important because what are we doing? We are indoctrinating them.
Yeah. I think a better question is, how should they be taught?
Yeah, and there's another.
What should we be taught?
Absolutely.
How should we be taught? And
content and the delivery of that content.
Yeah, and I do believe that education funnels us into one very narrow point of view. There's one video I was watching that talked about, it's called convergent thinking, and it's basically the ability to think outside the box and have imagination. Okay. And they tested children at kindergarten. 98% of these children had a genius level of convergent thinking. They retested them every 5 years and the percentage plummeted. So proving that the further into the educational system you get, the more you are indoctrinated into believing one narrowed view.
And this is where we get into conspiracy theory, because you see that the question that
Well, that was
everybody
a
asks,
study.
why wouldn't they just continue on that line? Why would they then, move them in? What is being taught? And there are a lot of people out there when it comes to education that believe that we are being indoctrinated into the workforce.
Oh, for
at that
sure.
point, that the countries that we live in, that these first world nations are so big that at the end of the day, we need workers and workers to do things that are not working to our potential. They're the things that
We're working
that
to
don't,
help a higher.
people need to work in factories, man.
We're
People
higher
need to work
power.
in factories. So you give them a 5-day school day or a 5-week school day, 2 days on the weekend, a little bit of vacation, and they're at school from 9 to 3, 9 to 4. Yeah, when you go to work, it's 9 to 5. Maybe it's 8 to 5.
9 to
whatever
5.
it is. And that's an indoctrination to get people used to the idea of getting in to the workforce to do the menial tasks, and you're not taking your potential and expanding it. You're not taking the human condition and trying to get them to live at the highest level that they possibly can be. You're trying to get the humans to be ready to go into the workforce so they can run things, so the people up there can run shit.
Yep,
and that's what the theory is.
I agree
Now,
with you.
I don't know if it's right. I don't know if it's wrong, but that's one of the major theories that's out there.
I believe everything starts as a class struggle. I believe everything is a class struggle between the higher class and the lower class, and just towing the line. And we just want people to be good soldiers and work for us.
Yep.
And this is something we need to look at, especially with automation becoming such a big thing. Is we're all going to get left in. Like, at what point do we just become even more slaves than we already are to the labor force? But we're kind of getting off topic here. So maybe in the future we'll talk about indoctrination again, maybe from an educational standpoint. Next week, I would like to have a little bit of a lighter topic, something a little bit more positive, something a little bit more near and dear to my heart.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about charities and just good in the
philanthropy.
World, right? Philanthropy.
I'm all about that.
Charity, and how we can change the system from the inside out.
That'll be a great topic, and it is a really great topic, because there is stuff you can talk about charity on the other side too. It is a polarizing issue.
Totally, 100%. And this is the thing is, I'm a big believer in systems theory, in pulling away from all of the little minute details, looking at what the overall strategy it is that we want to accomplish, and then narrowing in on how to do that.
Sure.
But on next week's podcast, I'd really like to talk about all the little mechanisms and all the minorities of people that are doing things from the inside out, because things aren't happening from a policy level, right? It's just not, right? And it should, and it's not, and it's slow, and human evolution is slow. And there's a majority, not a majority, but there's a percentage of people that are saying, fuck it, fuck them. Fuck all the policies then. We're going to try to change things. You see this with this hashtag trash thing that's going on in Facebook, where people are going to high garbage saturated areas, and they're going for dives and cleaning up garbage, because you know what, if society and the policy is not going to change, fuck it, let's all go pick up some garbage.
And isn't that what we're supposed to do as a populace anyway? And we can kind of close on this, like, at the end of the day, that's what this podcast is all about, while you finish the rest, because you got to get your St. Patrick's Day gold done. Congratulations, that's the first time that you've drank on the podcast, and I think it shows. And but at the end of the day, aren't we as people, like, isn't that what this podcast is all about, that we as people actually talk about things and try and make things better and move forward making things better? I love when the public takes the bull by the horns and says, you know what, we're not going to wait till we're legislated to do something. We're not going to wait till we're told. We're going to clean this area up, and it's going to be awesome. Like, I love watching people shovel each other's walks and driveways and things like that in the wintertime. I love when I love that stuff. And I think that with charities, many times, that's exactly what it is. It's a collection of people who want to do something
just want to do good
to make things better, and they're willing to put their time and their effort and their money and whatnot towards that. And I think that's a cool thing, and I can't wait to talk about that next week on the World of Grey.
And I also think that it bleeds into this little bit of indoctrination, because this is one of the arguments I was having with somebody, because I'm a big believer in taking care of people that need a little bit more help or a leg up. And every time I talk about this, it always gets to a point where somebody who doesn't know me says things things like, oh, well, maybe you should just get a job and not be a freeloader and not leech on society. Well, I have fucking news for you. I've been working nonstop since I was 15 years old, usually having more than one job, or like I do currently, doing way more hours than I get paid for because I fucking care about what I'm doing. And because I don't do everything I do for money. I do what I do because, yes, I do okay. I make a decent amount, enough to live, enough to be within the first world and not be starving. And that's enough for me. I don't ask for much, but I sacrifice the little bit of money that I could be making in the same field because I want to help my community, because I want to help others. I choose to do that. That doesn't mean I don't work hard. That doesn't mean I'm a leech on society. I pay more taxes than a lot of people, and I'm okay with paying taxes. And if you increased my taxes so that the majority of people could have better health and didn't live in poverty, I would be willing to do that because that's the kind of person I am. So this is where people go with their ideas and beliefs and start making it personal and start attacking people.
Well, and maybe they've been indoctrinated to do that.
Yeah, they've been indoctrinated to do it. To think
I don't think they're watching right now,
to
though.
Think that everybody that has this view that people should be taken care of are all freeloaders. I've never been a freeloader a day in my fucking life. I've never applied for employment. And I'm not saying that makes you a freeloader. Some people need that help up. I think that unemployment insurance or employment insurance needs to be there. And I'm okay with people taking that, but don't try to perpetuate and project your opinions onto my personal life, because not only have I worked my ass off since I was 15 and earned every fucking thing I've ever done. I paid for every school. My entire wrestling career.
I swear to God, the charity podcast is going to be positive. I promise.
No one has ever helped me a day in my life, but that doesn't mean that I don't think people deserve to be helped. So you need to think about things before you start projecting your opinions on people and start shoving opinions down people's throat and not assuming people's positions dictate the way they live their life.
And to just add on that, there are people out there who have legitimate reasons.
Those three
well, it's not a matter. I think we disclaimed that
I've been drinking.
It's St. Patrick's Day and he's been drinking. But I think it's safe to say, though, that there are people out there who maybe oppose the idea of charity and have legitimate reasons for doing so and haven't gone down the far path that Colin was talking about. There are other people who believe in charity and they believe charity is so strong that like I've met people who work for charities or have charities and they have a sense of entitlement. Why aren't you giving to me? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And what we're talking about,
I agree with that.
That's what the world of gray is all about.
Man.
Sometimes in the world of gray, what we do is we spew out what the polarized black and white arguments are. And then that's when we dive into the middle of it and talk about the world of gray. And I think that's what we're going to be doing when it comes to this, these topics.
That also doesn't mean that I don't think people don't take advantage of. I need to not. This is the last time I ever drink this much on the podcast. I promise. I'm like flailing. But that doesn't mean that I don't think people don't
flailing, ladies and gentlemen.
That people don't sponge on the system. I agree. There's always going to be people that take advantage, always. But does that mean that we just don't help the people that are struggling? We have struggling poor in the world. We have people that work full time and are still homeless.
That's what the world of gray is all about.
The system is broken. And we need to fix it.
You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because of people who are polarized or people who are extreme examples of things. People drive cars all the time. Sometimes people take cars and they drive them in a really, really, really bad way and bad things happen. That doesn't mean
care about people.
He does. He cares about people.
I'm sorry for caring about people, okay?
I don't think you're sorry.
I'm sorry
Why?
that I want people to just be okay. I'm sorry that I feel like we have enough technology to feed and house everyone, and the fact that we don't do that makes us morally inept.
Okay, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why are you sorry about that?
I'm not really sorry. I'm just saying that I'm tired of being ridiculed because I think we should at least ask the question, how can we take care of everyone? Oh, well, this is bullshit and this person's a socialist and blah, 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 and everyone's going to die. Like, this is the same thing we're talking about with, oh, I'm late for work and now we're all going to starve to death.
Sure.
Like, it's the same shit. Like, okay, yeah, certain socialistic countries in history have taken advantage, and I'm not saying that I know how to make socialism work. Get rid of the titles. Get rid of
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
Can we solve the basic problems? Can we get to a point where we can have vertical farms that have enough fruits and veggies so that we can at least have the bare minimum of survival for people? Can we house and feed everyone? In the United States, they have more foreclosed houses than they have homeless people. We have obesity on one side of the world, starvation on the other. Even that
I
shit
do too,
out.
Jade.
What's that?
Jade loves debate, and sometimes we'll even embrace opinions that aren't aren't his, just to make just to debate. And I love that too. And I think that that's really at the essence of what the world of gray is, drunk or not. That is what
I don't know if I'm drunk. I'm definitely not drunk because I can still articulate a sentence.
Well, I think we're
But I'm
talking
getting
about
there.
again the world of gray here. Degrees of.
I'm definitely in the world of gray.
Let's
of
see. I'm not
intoxication.
drunk. Could you drive a car?
I'm definitely not going to drive. I was
No,
going to take Daisy to the dog park, but
Can
now
you
I'm gonna
still
walk
talk?
her.
Yeah, I can still
definitely talk.
You sure can.
I can walk. I don't have
That's
to go to bed
debatable.
yet.
That's debatable. We haven't seen this yet. We
We're
don't
gonna
know. We
walk a
don't.
straight
We
line
don't.
when
He's
I-
gonna walk me out when we're done this. We'll see. We'll see. He's gonna walk me out. We'll see how that works.
All right,
I think you're
ladies-
gonna be crawling in the going and crawling in the pen with Hardy with his hurt back. I think that's where that is, and you're gonna sleep
Oh,
it off this
random.
afternoon. You and Hardy in his little what do you want to call it? His pen.
pen,
It's
yeah.
a pen. Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, next week what we're going to talk about is charity and trying to change the society, change our society from the inside out. Maybe I can't talk. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the World of Gray podcast in a society divided by black and white arguments.
Ooh,
We are
nice.
here, drunk or not, to explore the
Not.
World of Gray. I am Kelowna's Cougar Meat Kid, Colin Cutler.
I am the unnamed Mike Chisholm. Thank you very much for being a part of our lives.
Peace.
Love. Oh, look at you, man.
Did it. All right, YouTube. You have the before and after.
Yo, YouTube. Thanks
By
for
the
everything.
way, just for YouTube, I can drink way fucking more than 3 drinks before I start getting drunk. That was fun. All right. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
It's always okay on St. Patrick's Day.